Welcome to Ninerology, Faithful in the Trenches. I'm your host, Alan, and it's time for another episode of 13 going on Purdy. That's right, Brock Purdy. And you know what? It's another week of outside people throwing shade at Mr. Brock Purdy. And I don't know why. Actually, you know what? I do know why. It's because he was Mr. Irrelevant, and in order for people to give him his due, they have to admit they were wrong. They were wrong with their draft analysis. They were wrong with their projections on where he'd land. They are wrong about what he brings to the table and to a team. And in order to do that, they have to put their pride aside, and people aren't ready to do that yet for whatever reason. It doesn't matter that he's taken the 49ers to 2 straight NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl in his first 2 seasons. Now, let's not just say that, because then the argument goes, well, yeah, he's got a stacked roster. He's got Kyle Shanahan as coach. Let's look at him for what he's done. First off, last year alone, actually, let's get to the stats. Let's talk about some shade first, then we'll talk about the stats. Chris Sims ranked Brock Purdy number 17, the number 17 quarterback in the NFL. And he had this quote to say, what I would say to a lot of people is if you had a top 10 quarterback, you won the Super Bowl. You would win the Super Bowl. And I was saying, you know what, Chris Sims? That is a horrible assessment. Absolutely horrible, because what Brock Purdy has done is proven people wrong over and over and over again. Let's look at what he did this past year. Number 1 in passing yards in the air. Number 1 in yards per attempt. Number 1 in passer rating across the NFL. Number 1 in games with a quarterback rating of over 130. In fact, he would have set the NFL record with probably passer rating over 30, which would have been 7 games of over 130. He had 6 that year, this past year. He would have had 7, but he didn't play Week 18. He did not play Week 18. In fact, in over 63% of his games in 2 seasons, he is recording over 111 passer rating. You want to know what the league average is? 90. That's right. He's well over 20 points above the league average. Let's look at his numbers last year. 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 4,280 passing yards, which, remind you, set the franchise record for the 49ers. And that's without playing the last game in the season. And so I think that's a lot of shade that Chris Sims is throwing. I'm assuming that there's just not a whole lot of talk about over there with some of those analysts, and that's what he had to say because he knew it would rub people the wrong way, and it did. And then you have C.J. Stroud posting on social media today his top 5 quarterbacks for this past year. Put Patrick Mahomes number 1, no argument there. Lamar Jackson number 2, and guess who he put at number 3? Himself. He put himself. Now, granted, he had a great year last year, but he put himself at number 3. Josh Allen number 4, and then Dak Prescott number 5. First off, Dak Prescott shouldn't even be in the top 10. You talk about the ultimate guy who blows it at the end. You want somebody who's just going to lay an egg in the fourth quarter, get you hyped up throughout the regular season, only to lay an egg in the postseason. That's Dak Prescott. So if you're looking for the top 5 people who are going to lay an egg in the postseason, then that's a great list for that. But in this case, C.J. Stroud, where's the love for Brock Purdy? C.J. Stroud, you had a great year, but there's no continuity. There's no proof of this over time. Like, let's wait a bit before you start counting yourself as as number 3. And then Josh Allen had an up and down year. So if anything, both number 4 and 5 should be gone. You want to put yourself in the top 5? Put yourself in the top 5. But where is the love for Brock Purdy? You spent a couple podcasts saying that Brock Purdy deserves to be recognized, yet you're not even doing that yourself. And so, again, I think this is just another example of Brock Purdy having all the motivation he needs, not that he needs anymore, because he's been a phenomenal leader for the team, been there at OTAs, again, is making less than $1 million, making less than the backup quarterback on the team, and he's still showing up, being the leader, working throughout the entire offseason. And mind you, this is his first offseason being able to go through OTAs without having to nurse an injury, without having to try to make the team. He is the unquestioned starter and can start working on his craft now instead of waiting till training camp. And his arm's only going to get stronger. He's going to be able to dissect defenses even better. He's going to start using his legs even more. Now we got Jawan Jennings re-signed again. You got Ricky Pearsall back. You have the entire continuity on the offensive line. Christian McCaffrey is coming back. Brandon Ayuk hopefully will have some extra motivation. Hopefully he'll be back. And so I think this is the year that Brock Purdy is going to go ahead and get that Super Bowl ring. He's going to get that 6th Lombardi, and people are going to start having to give him his due. Unfortunately, he's going to just have to hear that noise throughout the rest of the year till he gets that ring there and proves people wrong, like Chris Sims ranking him number 17. That is just disrespectful. Brock Purdy, you got a whole bunch of fans, and don't just continue doing what you are doing and Let's bring that ring home, baby. And that's all we got for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time in our next episode of 13 Going on Purdy. Have a good one.